Have you ever had words get stuck in your throat? The kind you should have said but couldn't find the courage to release? It's just a question. 5 small words asked on a rainy Sunday evening that I dismissed without understanding their weight. But since that night, those words have echoed in my mind, a constant reminder of the moment I failed the person who mattered most. My name is Andrew, I'm 34, and this begins on an ordinary evening in April, the kind where spring rain taps gently against windows, where the apartment feels close and intimate, where conversations can turn from casual to profound in the space of a heartbeat. The kind of night that should have been insignificant, the kind you'd never imagine would become the dividing line of your life. Ellie and I had been together for 6 years. Not married, we'd talked about it, but there was always a reason to wait. Her graduate program needed to be finished. My promotion needed to come through. The timing needed to be right. Looking back, I wonder if those were reasons or excuses, ways to avoid committing fully to what we both claimed to want. That evening, we were in our usual positions, me at the kitchen table with my laptop, finalizing a presentation for an important client meeting the next morning. Ellie curled on the couch with a book, though I noticed she'd been on the same page for nearly an hour. The tension between us had been building for weeks, small disagreements that never quite resolved, plans discussed but never finalized. A distance growing so gradually I could pretend not to see it. "Andrew," her voice broke the silence, pulling my attention reluctantly from my screen. "Hmm?" I responded, not looking up, fingers still typing. "Can we talk for a minute?" I glanced at the time in the corner of my laptop, 9:47 p.m. The presentation was due to the senior partners by 8 a.m. "Can it wait until tomorrow? I really need to finish this tonight." I heard her soft sigh, the sound of her book closing. In my peripheral vision, I saw her sit up straighter, tucking her legs beneath her. "I don't think it should wait," she said, her voice quiet but firm. Something in her tone made me look up properly. She was watching me with an expression I couldn't quite read, a mixture of sadness and resolution that should have alarmed me more than it did. "What's wrong?" I asked, saving my document but not closing my laptop, my attention still divided. "I need to ask you something," she said, "and I need you to really think about your answer." I nodded, already glancing back at my screen, checking the time again. "Do you love me?" The question hung in the air between us, so simple yet so loaded with meaning. Not "do you still love me?" or "why don't you love me anymore?" Just a direct inquiry into the most fundamental aspect of our relationship. I should have closed my laptop then, should have moved to sit beside her, should have looked into her eyes and answered truthfully, whatever that truth might have been. Instead, I felt a flash of irritation. Not because the answer was difficult, but because the timing felt inconvenient. Because deep conversations about our relationship seemed like a distraction from the concrete task before me. "Let's not do this now," I said, voice sharper than I intended. "I've got this deadline, and you know how important this client is to the firm. Can we talk tomorrow when we're both not so tired?" She didn't respond immediately. When I glanced up again, I saw her blinking rapidly, her eyes shining with unshed tears. "Ellie," I began, a belated sense of concern surfacing. "It's fine," she interrupted, standing up. "You're right. Bad timing. We'll talk tomorrow," I promised, already turning back to my presentation. "After my meeting. I'll come home early and we can go to that Italian place you like." "Okay," she said softly. She crossed the room and pressed a kiss to the top of my head. Her hand lingered on my shoulder for a moment, a touch so familiar I barely registered it. "Good night, Andrew." "Night," I replied, absorbed again in my work. "Don't wait up." I didn't hear her leave the room, didn't notice when the apartment grew completely quiet, didn't think about our exchange again until hours later, when I finally closed my laptop at 1 a.m. and crawled into bed beside her sleeping form. In the darkness, I watched the outline of her breathing, remembering her question, "Do you love me?" Of course I did. Why would she even need to ask? We had a life together, a home. plans, even if they were perpetually delayed. "We'll talk tomorrow," I whispered to her sleeping figure. "I promise." But tomorrow never gave us that chance. I woke before dawn, showered quickly, and dressed in the bathroom to avoid waking Ellie. Left a note on the kitchen counter: meeting at 8, then lunch with clients, home by 5, Italian at 7, love you. Those last 2 words, scribbled as an afterthought. The answer to her question, written casually on a sticky note instead of spoken directly to her waiting heart. The morning passed in a blur of handshakes and PowerPoint slides. The presentation went well. The clients impressed, my supervisors satisfied, my career advancement secured. By early afternoon, I was riding the high of professional success, mentally composing how I'd tell Ellie about it over dinner. At 3:42 p.m., my phone rang. I stepped out of the conference room where we were celebrating with champagne, annoyed at the interruption. "Hello? Is this Andrew Mitchell?" A woman's voice, unfamiliar and official sounding. "Yes, that's me. This is Officer Ramirez with the City Police Department. I'm calling about Eleanor Morgan." The world seemed to narrow, sounds becoming distant as though I was underwater. "What about her? What's happened?" The officer's voice remained steady, professional. "There's been an incident, sir. I need you to come to Memorial Hospital as soon as possible." I don't remember the drive to the hospital, don't remember parking or running through sliding glass doors or giving Ellie's name at the information desk. Everything exists in my memory as fragments, disjointed images without continuity. The doctor's gentle voice, words that didn't make sense together. Intersection, impact, critical condition, doing everything we can. They let me see her briefly, a stolen moment before they took her into surgery. She looked small and broken in the hospital bed, monitors beeping, tubes everywhere. I held her hand, the only part of her that looked unchanged, and whispered apologies, declarations, promises, all the words I should have said the night before. "I do love you," I told her, though I don't know if she could hear me. "I've always loved you. I'm sorry I didn't say it when it mattered, but it was too late for words, too late for answers. Too late for anything but desperate prayers to a God I wasn't sure I believed in." The surgery lasted 7 hours. 7 hours of pacing sterile corridors, of coffee growing cold in shaking hands, of bargaining with the universe for one more chance. It wasn't enough. The surgeon's face told me everything before he spoke a single word. "I'm so sorry, Mr. Mitchell. We did everything we could." The days that followed exist in my memory as a blur of necessary actions performed by a person who looked and sounded like me, but couldn't possibly be me. Calling her parents in Boston. Arrangements, forms, decisions no one should have to make at 34. Through it all, one moment kept replaying in my mind. Ellie on the couch, eyes shimmering with tears, asking the most fundamental question of our relationship. "Do you love me?" And my response, impatient and dismissive, "Let's not do this now." That was the last thing she ever asked me, the last chance I had to affirm what should have been unquestionable, and I had brushed it aside for a presentation, for a client, for my career. I found out later that Ellie had left our apartment that morning earlier than usual. Her colleague mentioned she'd wanted to pick up breakfast for the office, a celebration for a research grant their department had received. She was crossing the street, carrying a box of pastries, when the delivery truck ran the red light. Such an ordinary moment, such a random tragedy. There was nothing meaningful about how she left, nothing that connected to our last conversation, just terrible, senseless chance. Except for the question that now haunted me. Had she gone to sleep, wondering if I loved her? Had she woken up still waiting for an answer? Had she left that morning thinking we would finally have that conversation in the evening, never imagining there would be no more evenings for us? After the memorial service, I returned to our apartment alone. It looked exactly as we'd left it. Her book still on the couch, my sticky notes still on the counter, dishes from 2 days ago still in the sink. Evidence of a life interrupted, of plans postponed until a tomorrow that never arrived. I sat on the couch where she'd been when she asked me that final question, tried to imagine what she'd been thinking, what she'd been hoping to hear. Why that particular moment, that particular question? On the coffee table, her journal lay closed, a pen marking her place. I hesitated, feeling like an intruder in her private thoughts, yet desperate for any insight into her final days. The last entry was dated the morning of the accident. I asked him last night, finally gathered the courage after weeks of feeling us drift apart. Do you love me? Simple and direct. No accusations, no demands, just a question I needed answered. He couldn't even look away from his computer. Let's not do this now. That was his response. Not yes or of course or even I'm not sure anymore. Just a dismissal. As if the foundation of our relationship was an inconvenience to be scheduled around his work. I don't know what that means for us. I don't know if there still is an us in any meaningful sense. I've been offered the research position in Chicago. A year away might give us both clarity. I'll tell him tonight. Whatever he says will determine whether I go alone or whether we try to make it work long distance. I'm scared of the conversation, but more scared of continuing in this limbo where I feel less and less important each day. 6 years deserves at least honest answers, even painful ones. The journal fell from my hands. A research position in Chicago, a potential year apart, a decision point she'd been building toward, gathering courage for, while I'd been absorbed in presentations and clients and career advancement. I hadn't known any of it, hadn't noticed her gathering resolve, hadn't recognized that her simple question contained layers of meaning, hadn't understood that for her, my unwillingness to answer might have been an answer in itself. And now I would never know what could have happened, whether we would have worked through this rough patch or grown further apart, whether distance would have clarified our feelings or confirmed our doubts, whether I would have found the courage to commit fully or the honesty to let go. All possibilities had collapsed into a single unbearable reality. Her last question to me would remain forever unanswered. The last thing she asked of me, simple emotional honesty, was the one thing I had refused to give. Do you love me? Let's not do this now. Words I would give anything to take back. A conversation I would sacrifice everything to restart. A moment that would define the rest of my life, not by what was said, but by what wasn't. Because the truth, the terrible, too late truth, was that I did love her. Deeply, completely, imperfectly. But I had allowed work and ambition and the illusion of more important things to mask that truth, to push it below the surface of our daily interactions, to make it seem optional rather than essential. And now, in her absence, it was the only truth that mattered, the only answer that counted, the one I could no longer give her. It's been 9 months since that April evening. 9 months of carrying those 5 unanswered words with me, of hearing them echo in quiet moments, of imagining all the ways that conversation could have gone if I had simply closed my laptop and been present for the woman I loved. Winter has arrived again, bringing with it the first holiday season without Ellie. Our apartment, my apartment now, looks different. I've rearranged furniture, replaced the couch where she sat that night, painted walls to cover the marks where her art once hung. Physical changes that do nothing to alter the emotional geography of the space. I've changed too, in ways both visible and invisible. Colleagues comment on my new tendency to leave work precisely at 5, to decline non-essential meetings, to keep my phone face down during conversations. Friends note my increased attentiveness, my reluctance to discuss career ambitions, my habit of asking deeper questions and waiting for complete answers. My therapist, yes, I started seeing one, calls it post-traumatic growth, the hard-won wisdom that sometimes comes after devastating loss, after confronting the consequences of choices we can't unmake. You cannot change what happened, she reminds me in our sessions. But you can allow it to transform how you show up in all your relationships going forward. So I answer questions when they're asked, even difficult ones. I make eye contact during important conversations. I say, I love you to my parents, my sister, my friends, words that once felt awkward in my mouth now spoken freely before it's too late. Small changes, perhaps, but radical ones for someone who once treated emotional conversations as inconvenient interruptions to more important work. 3 months ago, I finally called Ellie's research advisor and learned about the position in Chicago she'd been offered. A prestigious fellowship, a career-making opportunity she'd hesitated to accept because of me, because of us. Because she wasn't sure if our relationship was worth preserving through a year of separation. She was one of our most promising researchers, Dr. Hoffman told me, voice warm with memory. The kind of mind that comes along rarely. The fellowship would have been perfect for her work on climate adaptation strategies. Would she have been good at it? I asked, needing to hear more, to understand this future she'd been contemplating. Exceptional, he replied without hesitation. She had that rare combination of scientific rigor and genuine compassion. She cared about the people behind the data. That was Ellie, always seeing the humanity in every situation, the beating hearts behind abstract problems, the quality I had admired from the beginning, then gradually taken for granted, then finally overlooked entirely as my focus narrowed to promotions and presentations. After that conversation, I did something I'd been avoiding for months. I visited her parents in Boston, bringing with me her journal and research notes, physical pieces of the daughter they had lost. Her childhood home was filled with photos of Ellie, as a gap-toothed 7-year-old, as a serious teenager with a science fair trophy, as a confident young woman in graduation robes. Evidence of a life richly lived before I ever knew her. A reminder that she had been someone's entire world long before she became part of mine. She called us that morning, her mother told me as we sat in their kitchen, tea growing cold between us. Just to chat, she said, but I sensed something was wrong. My heart constricted. Did she mention our conversation the night before? Her father shook his head. Not specifically. She just said she had an important decision to make and wasn't sure which path to take. Chicago, I said quietly. She was deciding about Chicago. They exchanged a glance. Yes, her mother confirmed, and about whether your relationship could survive the distance. I didn't know, I admitted, shame burning in my throat. She tried to talk to me that night, and I was too busy with work, too distracted to recognize what she was really asking. Her father's hand came to rest on my shoulder, a touch so unexpected I nearly broke down. Ellie loved you, he said simply. She wouldn't want you punishing yourself forever. But how do you stop punishing yourself when the evidence of your failure is so concrete? When you can point to the exact moment you chose wrong, the precise words you can never take back. Do you love me? Let's not do this now. Last month, I finally made the decision to leave the apartment we'd shared. Too many ghosts lingered there, too many memories of conversations we'd had and those we never got to have. I found a smaller place across town, somewhere without the weight of history pressing down on every surface. As I packed, I discovered things I hadn't known were there. Little notes Ellie had hidden in books and drawers, small treasures she'd collected from our travels together, photos I'd never seen of moments I barely remembered. Each one a reminder of her thoughtfulness, her attention to detail, her capacity for finding meaning in ordinary moments. In the back of her closet, behind winter coats I couldn't bring myself to donate, I found a small wrapped package with my name on it. My birthday had been 2 weeks after the accident, a day I'd spent in a fog of grief, barely registering the date. She must have hidden my gift early, knowing I never looked in that particular corner. With trembling hands, I unwrapped it. Inside was a vintage compass, beautifully restored, with an inscription engraved on the back. Find your true north. Love always, Ellie. I sat on the floor of our emptying apartment, compass clutched in my hand, and finally allowed myself to fully break down. Not the controlled weeping of the memorial service or the quiet tears of therapy sessions, but deep, body-shaking sobs that came from the darkest place inside me. Because I understood, too late, what she had been trying to tell me all along, that I had lost my way, that I had been following the wrong stars, that my compass needed recalibration toward what truly mattered. Do you love me? Not just a question about feelings, but about priorities, about choices, about who I wanted to be and what kind of life I wanted to build. And I had answered, let's not do this now. 2 weeks ago, I declined the partnership track at my firm, the very position I'd been working toward on that fateful night. The senior partners were shocked, my colleagues baffled. It was the role I'd sacrificed evenings and weekends and relationship conversations for, the brass ring I'd been reaching for at the expense of everything else. I need a different direction, I explained simply. Work I can believe in, not just excel at. I've accepted a position instead with an environmental law nonprofit working specifically on climate adaptation legislation, the very field Ellie had been researching. The pay is significantly less, the prestige non-existent by corporate standards, but the work has meaning, purpose, connection to what mattered to her. It's not atonement, nothing could be, but it's a redirection, a recalibration of my internal compass toward the true north she had seen all along. Yesterday would have been our 7th anniversary, not of marriage, but of the day we met at a mutual friend's housewarming party. In past years, we'd always celebrated quietly, usually with takeout and a good bottle of wine, reminiscing about how nervous I'd been asking for her number, how she'd beaten me to it by programming her contact into my phone when I wasn't looking. This year, I took the day off work and went to the botanical garden she had loved, the place we'd spent countless Sunday afternoons wandering among flowers and trees, her identifying species, me content just to be in her presence. Though not always fully present, I realize now. Too often checking emails or thinking about Monday's workload instead of appreciating the moment we were sharing. I brought her favorite flowers, simple daisies, nothing exotic, and found a quiet bench where I could sit alone with my thoughts, with her memory, with the question that still haunts me. Do you love me? Yes, I said aloud, though there was no one to hear but birds and distant visitors. I loved you then. I love you still. I'm sorry I couldn't say it when it mattered. The garden continued its quiet existence around me, flowers blooming and fading, bees collecting nectar, life proceeding in its relentless cycle. Indifferent to my regret, my belated declarations, my useless hindsight. As the afternoon light began to fade, I took out the compass she had given me, my constant companion now, carried in my pocket like a talisman. Watched the needle swing steadily toward magnetic north, unwavering in its purpose, and I made a promise to Ellie, to myself, to whatever future might still be possible, that I would never again postpone honesty for convenience, never again treat someone's heart as less urgent than a deadline, never again respond to vulnerability with dismissal, because I've learned, in the hardest way possible, that some questions deserve immediate answers. Some conversations can't wait for a more convenient time. Some moments once missed never come again. Do you love me? It seems like such a simple question, one that should have received an immediate, unequivocal yes. One that should have prompted me to close my laptop, move to her side, look into her eyes, and affirm what should have been unquestionable. Instead, I said, let's not do this now. And now there is no now, no later. No tomorrow where I can finally give the answer her heart was waiting to hear. Just the empty space where a conversation should have happened. Just the echo of a question that deserved better than it received. Just the knowledge that the last thing she ever asked of me was the one thing I refused to give. Simple emotional honesty in a moment of vulnerability. I don't know what would have happened if I'd answered differently that night. Whether my yes would have been enough, whether we would have discussed Chicago, made plans for a long-distance relationship, found a way forward together. Whether we would have ultimately grown closer through the challenge or realized we wanted different futures, I only know that she deserved an answer, that my love for her should have been stated clearly, not assumed or implied or postponed, that no presentation or client or career advancement was worth the silence that now stretches eternally between her question and my response. A week ago, I received an email from Dr. Hoffman, Ellie's research advisor. The Climate Adaptation Fellowship has been renamed in her honor, ensuring her name will be associated with the work she valued, even though she cannot continue it herself. He invited me to the dedication ceremony next month. Ellie often spoke of your support for her research, he wrote, and how much it meant to her to have a partner who understood the importance of her work. I stared at those words for a long time, recognizing the kindness in them, but also the irony. Had she said that, believing it to be true? Or had Dr. Hoffman assumed it, filling in the expected relationship narrative? Because the painful truth was that I hadn't supported her research, not actively, not meaningfully. I'd nodded at appropriate moments when she discussed it, asked occasional cursory questions, but never truly engaged with this work that had been so central to her sense of purpose. Another failure, another opportunity missed, another conversation postponed until it was too late. I accepted the invitation to the dedication ceremony. It will be difficult, standing among her colleagues who knew aspects of her I never fully appreciated, hearing them speak of her brilliance, her dedication, her vision for the future. But it's important to be there, to witness her legacy taking shape, to honor what mattered to her. And perhaps it's also a first step toward answering her question differently, not with words she can no longer hear, but with actions that align with what she valued, with a reorientation toward what truly matters, with a commitment to never again postpone love for something less important. This morning, I sat on the balcony of my new apartment, compass in hand, watching the sun rise over the city. In the quiet of dawn, I could almost hear Ellie's voice asking that final question, "Do you love me?" And though it comes too late for her to hear, my answer flows freely now. Yes. With every beat of my heart, every breath in my lungs, imperfectly, distractedly, but completely. I'm sorry I couldn't say it then. I'm sorry I made you doubt it. I'm sorry I treated anything else as more important than affirming what should have been unquestionable. The compass needle trembled slightly in the morning breeze, then steadied again toward north, toward truth, toward what matters. I don't know if Ellie can hear me now. Don't know if my belated answer reaches wherever she has gone. Don't know if there's any comfort in words that come after they're needed. But I do know this, that her final question has become my daily practice, that I've learned to prioritize hearts over deadlines, connection over accomplishment, presence over productivity, that I'll never again say not now when someone offers vulnerability, asks for reassurance, seeks confirmation of their place in my life, because sometimes later never comes. Sometimes not now becomes never. Sometimes the simplest questions are the most important ones, deserving immediate and complete attention. Do you love me? If someone gathers their courage to ask you this, whether literally or in the thousand subtle ways people seek reassurance, please answer. Close your laptop, put down your phone, look into their eyes. Be present for this moment that matters more than whatever else seems pressing. Because I can tell you with absolute certainty, nothing on that screen, nothing in that meeting, nothing in that career advancement is worth the silence that echoes when it's too late to answer.